Hi, an announcement first. Due to some technical issue, Part 73 uploaded twice instead of Part 74. Here you can find actual Part 74 of the story along with Part 75. Sorry for this inconvenience, thanks. Oh, special thanks to Stephen Reed 5441, David Peters 6526, Martha Long, Cobberjoy, Grafton 261 for informing me about the glitch. I slept late the next day. Our flight out wasn't until late afternoon, so we had plenty of time. Over brunch I told Mom all about the premiere and the party. The local paper had an article about the premiere and Mom read part of it out loud. Last evening, our city was honored to host the world premiere of the new movie Under the Scarlet Maple. The movie, set in Maine just before the turn of the century, is a romantic love story with social situations that are reminiscent of the style of Jane Austen. The star of the film, Crystal Ramsey, and her co-star, Gregory Crown, attended the premiere, as did most of the main cast. I had the privilege of attending this wonderful new movie last night and meeting the cast. Miss Ramsey, the star of the story, burst onto the big screen less than 2 years ago after her television series, Oliver on Board, was cancelled, through no fault of her fine acting. Her previous motion picture appearances have been acclaimed performances and she has had steadily larger roles. Her role in Under the Scarlet Maple is her first starring role in a major motion picture and certainly won't be her last, as her performance was nothing short of wonderful. She made the character of Elizabeth come alive on the screen, while displaying all of the aplomb and demeanor that one would expect from a young woman of that period. I found myself falling in love with her character and became truly jealous of Gregory Crown's character each time that he embraced Miss Ramsey. The article went on to talk about the performances of the others and included a synopsis of the movie. "That's a very nice review, honey," Mom said. "Yes, it is. The movie goes into general release today, so we'll see what the rest of the country thinks about it pretty quickly. I thought that it turned out great, but the critics are the ones that help decide its popularity." After breakfast I carefully packed my gown for shipment to Carol in California since I didn't want to take it down to Mexico. Carol would take it over to the condo for me. Mom and I left for the airport just after 2 o'clock, and we expected to be in Acapulco around 9 p.m. local time. We would stay at the hotel overnight and then go to the jungle site on Monday morning. Back at the camp, the days were hot, the bugs and spiders were large, and the snakes were frightening. Each night a mist was released throughout the camp that would help keep down the flying insect population, and each day I would load myself with insect repellent. Between the two, bug problems were kept to a minimum. The other serious problem was the sun, so I never went out until I had coated every exposed patch of skin with sunblock. Even so I stayed in the shade as much as possible between scenes. Cold bottled water was always available as promised, and we consumed great quantities to keep from becoming dehydrated. The actors and the crew, despite the heat and the bugs, were in good spirits and we had a lot of fun working together. All the members of the cast had been recruited for their comedic abilities and most of them were very quick with the ad-libs. We laughed our way through each week, pausing only long enough to get the shooting done. On Sundays we always spent the day by the pool at the hotel. It was a couple of weeks after the premiere that I received a script from Mr. Daniels in the mail and I spent one Sunday morning reading it as I relaxed on a chaise lounge at poolside. It was the script for the outer space movie that I had interviewed for a few months ago. There had been a note attached to the script asking me to call him as soon as I read the script, so I did. The number was to his personal cell phone. Daniels. "Hi, Mr. Daniels. This is Crystal." "Crystal. Hi, honey. How's everything down in Mexico?" "Hot and humid. Just like every day." He laughed. It's quite a change from your last picture. That's for sure. I'm calling about the script that you sent. I just finished reading it. What do you think of it? It seems to be more special effects than acting. I thought that you might be interested because I know that you want to take different roles so that you don't wind up being typecast. That's true, but I don't know if anyone would buy me as the captain of a spaceship. That's where your acting ability comes into play. You'll make them believe it. I know you can do it. I don't know. How many others are up for the part? The part is yours if you want it. You interviewed for it in June and you're the one that they want. You're so hot right now that your name is like magic. The new movie is a sensation at the box office and Jennifer's been doing a great job of promoting you. I told you that we'd have movie producers climbing over one another to get you in their pictures. It's starting. Where does it shoot, and when? That's the great part. It's all going to be done at a studio in England. It's all indoors work, except for some establishing shots, so you get a break from the weather for a change. England? Like in Great Britain? Yeah, at Pinewood Studio in Buckinghamshire. I thought for a few moments about how great it would be to work in England for a few months. There would be so much to do on weekends compared to working in Mexico. You didn't say when it's being shot. Well, they want to start production on January 14th. And before you say anything, I know that you had intended to start school in January, but hear me out. I know that I can get them to go to 7 million for you. This way you can start school in September and be a real part of the class since you aren't coming in at the middle of the year. You do the Moons of Cappacia and then you can relax for a few weeks before the next part of Open Spaces begins shooting. The last part surprised me. Open Spaces? Yeah, I just heard from them. They're working on the script now. They expect to start shooting in May. They want you to be ready for filming on May 13th. May 13th? But that's before the end of the school term? That's another good reason to postpone starting school until September. You'll have time to do both pictures before you retire for the school year. And the salary for doing the Moons of Cappacia will boost your salary for the next Open Spaces movie considerably using the formula that was put into the contract. I'm sure that they didn't figure that an unknown person would be earning 7 million a picture after only 2 years. This is an awful lot to think about. When do they have to have an answer? As soon as possible if you're going to turn them down. The sets are being built now and they'll be ready to start shooting on their projected start date. Okay. I'll call you tomorrow morning before we head back into the jungle. Great. I'll talk to you then, Han. I continued to lie by the pool for another hour before going to look for Mom. I found her having lunch in an outdoor restaurant with the head camera operator. Hi, dear. Sit down. Are you hungry? As I sat down in the empty chair I said, Hi, Mom. Hi, Charlie. No, not really. I just got off the phone with Mr. Daniels. I called him after I read the script that he sent down. You look troubled. What's the problem? Is the script really bad? No. It's not the script, that's fine. It's the timetable. They want to start shooting on January 14th. And the next part of Open Spaces starts shooting on May 13th. That creates a problem with school. Does it ever? I told Mr. Daniels that I'd call tomorrow before we left for the site. Even if I turn down the new movie, I'm still supposed to report 4 open spaces before the school term is over. Mr. Daniels says that I should do both movies and go to school in September when the new school year starts. That's to be expected. He only gets a commission when you work. How do you feel about it? My contract for open spaces says that I have to report on the start date unless I'm currently involved with another project that started before notification or if I'm physically incapacitated. If I have to postpone my semester for them, I might as well do the other picture. I can't imagine sitting around for 4 months. And the salary isn't too bad either. How much are they offering? As much as for this picture? Mr. Daniels says that he can get more because I'm hot right now because of the last picture. He said that he thinks that they'll go to 7. Oh my God. $7 million? I saw Charlie's eyes open a little wider, and they hadn't exactly been drooping up until now. Plus he said that it would mean a lot more for doing open spaces based on the formula that was agreed to in the contract. How much more? He didn't say, and I didn't ask. I'm already committed to doing it regardless of the increase. And now I've been notified of the start date. It looks like you don't have a choice about delaying the start of college if you're going to be there at the start of open spaces. Maybe they'll shoot around you like they did the first time. The semester would be over 2 weeks after their scheduled start date. Maybe, but maybe I should do the 2 pictures and then retire. I'll only have to do 1 more picture after that and I can go to school without interruption. The money will double what we have in the bank now. Retire? Charlie said. You'd retire just when you're becoming one of the hottest new stars in the business? Only for 4 years, while I go to college. You may not make it back to this point. Why even go to college? People go to college to learn a skill so that they can compete in the workplace. You've got a natural gift that's in demand right now. That's 10 times better than a college education. I went to college, and I make a decent living, but if I had an opportunity like this one, I'd prefer to be an ignorant, extremely successful, highly paid actor. You can always go back to college when your star begins to dim, or when you're so successful that taking 4 years off will only increase your demand. I think that you should take the deal and the money while you can. And if they offer you more, keep taking it until they stop offering. If you don't go to college until you're 30, so be it. If you're going because you want to learn, a few years shouldn't dim the urge. You won't have to worry about having to do a 9 to 5 while you go to school if you keep banking your money. The question that you should be asking yourself is, why do you want to go to school? I looked at Charlie for a few seconds, then at Mom, then down at the table. I don't know. For as long as I can remember, I've just been obsessed with getting a college education. I guess that it was so that I could get a good job and not have to worry about money anymore. I wanted to have all the things that I could never have growing up because we didn't have much money. Mom worked hard and we weren't deprived, but there wasn't money to go to Disneyland, or even for things like band concerts. I guess that I have now what I wanted all along. But I also want to learn. Since I've gotten involved with acting, I've kind of set my goal on becoming a director. You don't have to go to college for that, Charlie said. Just keep doing what you've been doing. Watch the directors that you work with and learn from them. They know more about directing than college professors who spend all their time in an academic setting. Eventually you'll get an opportunity to sit behind the camera. If you keep getting starring roles, you'll even be able to have your own production company one day. Charlie was right. Retiring from the business so that I could go to college and then try to break back into the business was like the old joke about the nurse waking up the patient so that he could take a sleeping pill. It just didn't make sense. I had already decided to remain as I was until I had completed my obligation to the open spaces contract. So it made sense to maximize my earnings until then. If that meant not going to college for a while, then so be it. I was already going to be the oldest virgin in Southern California. It wouldn't be so bad to be one of the oldest freshmen in college. I decided to do the new picture and postpone college for as long as I was in demand. It was a monumental decision that was to radically change the course of my life. I didn't wait for the next day to call Mr. Daniels back. I did it right away so that I didn't weaken overnight and become indecisive again. In early November, the special effects people joined us. Among them was Chet, and we shared a nice reunion hug. "Crystal, you're looking great. How are you doing?" "Better now, Chet." "How did you wind up on this picture?" "My company was hired to do the F/X. I told you that we might work together someday." "Well, welcome to Mexico. I have a scene coming up shortly, so I have to go right now, but let's have lunch together later. It's a date if I'm off at the same time, otherwise make it dinner." "Okay. See you later." It was nice to see somebody from home, and I looked forward to speaking with Chet later. Right now I had to go roll around in the mud with one of the banditos who acted like the village idiot. The scene called for him to catch me trying to find the keys to the bus, and then chase me and tackle me. Stunt people would do the rough stuff, but I would have to be in the mud hole for the close-ups. It's just more of the usual glamour stuff associated with being a movie star. After my scenes were shot, I returned to the trailer so that I could take a bath. Later this afternoon I would have to get muddy again for the follow-up scene where I washed off in a waterfall, and then appeared pristine again as if I had just left a beauty salon, but I didn't want to stay muddy for the next 3 or 4 hours. The F/X crew was off working in another area, so I didn't see Chet for lunch, but we did have dinner together. He joined Mom and me in my trailer. "Congratulations on the huge success of Under the Scarlet Maple, Crystal." "Thanks, Chet. Did you see it?" "Of course. I thought that it, and you of course, were great, and I haven't seen a single negative review. Some of the critics are talking about an Oscar nomination. You know me, I'll believe it when it happens. But it's nice to know that they enjoyed the picture enough to mention it." "So how's everything back home, Chet?" "How's Bud?" "Fine. I haven't seen too much of him lately, though. He's got a new girlfriend, someone that he met at the studio, and he's been staying at her place a lot. I've seen Carol a couple of times out at the pool. She and Samantha were there this past weekend. I told her that I was coming down here to work on the picture, and she said to say that she sends her love to the both of you." "Thanks, Chet. She's going to come down for Thanksgiving vacation." "Will you still be here?" "I expect to be. The boss said that we'll be here for 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the weather. If the rain gets out of hand, we could be here longer. Tomorrow we're supposed to shoot the scenes where the bandits shoot up the road to stop the tour bus." "Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Too bad I have to be on the bus and won't get to see it from the sidelines. There'll be plenty of other scenes to see later on. The bandits are gun happy according to the F/X script. We have a lot of work ahead of us." Holding up a glass of iced tea, I said, "Here's to lots of successful fireworks displays." "My first love," Chet said as he clicked his glass to mine. Mom just grinned and shook her head. A week later I received a letter from Brad. He wrote, "My dearest Crystal, I hope that all is well down there in Mexico. I've been doing fine and I've gotten a lot of playing time since Gary suffered the concussion in our 4th game. He'll be okay, but he probably won't play anymore this year. There's no easy way to say this, so I'll just come out with it. I've met someone here. We've dated a couple of times during the past 2 weeks, and it feels right. I didn't want you to hear it from anyone else first, so I'm writing to tell you rather than waiting to see you at Christmas. What you and I had was very special to me and I didn't mean for this to happen, but since I graduated from high school we've grown apart. Between my football and your career, we hardly ever get to see one another anymore. Now that you'll be living and going to school on the West Coast, it seems that things will only get worse. I had hoped that you'd be going to school in Pittsburgh, but it wasn't meant to be. Maybe it's for the better that we part, but I hope that we can remain good friends. I've cared very deeply for you, but I've begun to realize that it's time to go our separate ways. You'll always hold a very special place in my heart. Your friend forever, Brad. I sat back in my chair after reading the letter for the 3rd time and thought about it. I had always expected that Brad would meet someone at college, and now he had. He had been a good and very dear friend during a very emotional period in my life, and I held genuine affection for him, but it was time for us to part. By happening at his instigation, he would be spared any pain of a separation. It was better to happen this way than by having him learn the lie that I was living. I got out my writing paper and wrote, "Dear Brad, I understand what you're saying and I shall always cherish the memories of our time together. I hope that your new relationship will bring you all the joy and happiness in the world. I too hope that we can remain good friends. With much love for my friend, Crystal." The letter was short, but there wasn't really very much to be said. I truly hoped that he would find happiness in his new relationship. I addressed the letter and put a stamp on it. Later I would put it in the mail sack with the camp's other outgoing mail. The movie progressed normally over the following weeks. We had days of rain that put a halt to shooting and forced us to hole up in the trailer, but the shooting schedule had allowed for rain, so we quickly got back on track when the rain ended. Carol arrived at the site on the afternoon before Thanksgiving Day. We hadn't seen each other in 2 months, so our reunion was emotional. Mom got Carol settled in because I had a scene to do. Mr. Tisch worked us late because Thursday would be a day off, so I didn't get to speak with Carol until dinner. "Oh yuck," Carol said with an exaggerated tone, "it's so humid down here." "You get used to it," I said. "At least we have AC in the trailer so we can sleep at night." "I love your trailer. It's one of the biggest in the camp." RHIP. What? Rank has its privileges. Your status determines your living accommodations or dressing room accommodations. Remember my dressing room when we first went to shoot Oliver on board? It was about the size of 2 broom closets. You've come a long way since then, sis. Under the Scarlet Maple has been a big success. It's still running at some theaters and I heard that it's been a big financial success. I smiled. I'm glad. They took a big chance using a couple of relative unknowns for the leads. Unknowns? Carol said in a shocked voice. You and Gregory were both established actors. But neither of us had starred in a movie before. They took a chance that we could carry the picture. I'm glad that their faith was justified. I'm sure that they're laughing all the way to the bank. They took a gamble and did well. They got you for $3 million. Somebody like Julia Roberts would have cost them $20 million. They saved $17 million by hiring you, and probably the same over hiring a famous male lead like Brad Pitt. I'm happy that they did take the gamble. Look at how much I'm being paid for this picture. Each larger role and successful picture has raised my salary. My next picture is for 7 million. You're getting 7 million? A CVEN million to do another picture? Well, not exactly. The actual amount is 7.5 million. Mr. Daniels flew down with the lawyer from the movie company this past weekend so that I could sign the contract. They only stayed long enough for lunch and the signing and then went right back to the airport. Oh my God. 7.5 million. That's unbelievable. I guess that it's all because of my role in Under the Scarlet Maple. So you can see why I'm happy that the movie company is doing so well. Yeah, I see. Well, what are we doing for Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow? And I want to hear all about the new movie. The caterer will be serving turkey dinners at lunch tomorrow in the cook tent. It's not going to be like our Thanksgivings at home, but it's the best we can do this year. At least there'll be turkey, stuffing, gravy, squash, and lots of fresh vegetables. I spent the next hour telling Carol about the Moons of Cappacia movie. The promised meal was very good and the entire camp enjoyed the holiday, except for possibly the catering people who have to serve 3 meals a day regardless of the date. After dinner, most of the cast and crew just lazed about. A few of the musically talented entertained the rest of us during the afternoon. Friday was a full workday again and we returned to the shooting schedule. I noticed that Carol was paying a lot closer attention to the technical side of the movie making than she ever had before. No doubt she was attempting to match her classroom training to the real thing. After we finished shooting on Saturday, we headed to the hotel for our weekly break from the dirt and the bugs. We were more than halfway through the shooting schedule now and beginning to look forward to the end of the movie. Our weekly stays at the hotel offered us the opportunity to enjoy real Mexican dishes. The Mexican of food that you normally get in the States is usually referred to as Tex-Mex by food connoisseurs. One of the main differences seems to be that real Mexican food uses a lot of cilantro, which is like parsley. On this day, we started off with a fresh fish and vegetable soup that is so common south of the border. The closest thing found commonly in the States is Manhattan clam chowder. For her entree, Mom ordered chili rellenos, which are chili poblanos that are stuffed with a mixture of cheese and meat, then batter dipped and fried. North of the border, bell peppers are usually substituted for the poblanos because of the difficulty in finding them outside of areas with huge Mexican populations. I ordered chorizo, which is a mixture of beef and pork sausage and a number of spices, that was mixed and left, tightly covered, in a refrigerator for 2 days so that it could blend. Then it's fried, and served on a fried tortilla in which a nest of fried beans and cheese has been made. The portion was very generous, and covered with shredded lettuce, onions, tomatoes, and cheese. As always, when dining out, Mom and I shared our food so that we could both enjoy the 2 dishes. Carol and I spent Sunday morning by the pool. We talked about college and compared notes on things that Carol was learning in class versus what I had learned from working at the movie locations. I also broke the news about Brad and I splitting up. "You're kidding," she said. "Nope. He wrote that he met someone else at school. I'm happy for him. He's a great guy and he deserves all the happiness that comes his way. We're still good friends. But he just threw you over? I've expected it for a long time. Our lives are going in totally different directions. Don't be upset." "I'm not. There wasn't any future for us." "Okay. It's your life." After lunch, Mom and I took Carol to the airport to catch a flight back to LA. We wouldn't see each other again until Christmas break, so we hugged for several minutes at the gate. On Monday, we resumed shooting. Everyone seemed to be trying harder and willing to work longer hours as we got closer to Christmas. We were hoping that we could be done by the time that the holiday season started, but Mr. Tisch wasn't going to sacrifice quality for a shorter schedule. On the days when we couldn't work because of rain, everyone sat around and grumbled about the weather. We finished the shooting just 4 days before Christmas, much to the delight of cast and crew. We had a party to celebrate the end of the picture, and then people started leaving to catch late flights back to the States. Mom had made reservations as soon as it appeared that we would finish today, and then she had packed our suitcases. After saying goodbye to everyone, we left for the airport. Chet had left a week earlier when the F/X team was finished. I felt a little sorry for the people that had to stay behind to clear the site. They wouldn't be home for Christmas with their families. We arrived in Chicago on a direct flight from Acapulco around midnight. There weren't any more commuter flights that late, so we went to a hotel for the evening. We would fly home in the morning. The desk clerk at the hotel recognized me as soon as Mom wrote Ramsey. He said what a pleasure it was to have us stay there and signaled to a bellboy to show us to the room. We only had our carry-on bags with us as our other luggage had been cleared through to the next flight and was sitting somewhere in the bowels of the airport. Mom asked the clerk to keep our presence there a secret, and he said that that was standard practice with their celebrity guests. We stopped to rent a car at the airport when we got home. Before Mom even gave the woman her name, the clerk was asking for my autograph. Within minutes I was surrounded by people shoving paper at me and tugging at my clothes. I was finally rescued by airport security people who thought that there was a riot going on. I was taken to an office where I could pull myself together, and the car rental agent brought the paperwork to us. After the car was arranged, we were led out a back way and escorted to where the car was parked. We'd rented the car because although Mom's car was at the house, we'd need more than one while we were here, and mine was in California. Carol was home from school already as the college had closed for the holiday break, and Carol was off for the next 3 weeks. She was eating a late breakfast when we walked in. After the hugging, Carol helped Mom and me take our things to our rooms, then we all went to the kitchen. Mom and I had a cup of tea while Carol finished eating. Okay, girls, we have a great deal to do and not much time to do it. Carol, have you completed your shopping? Not completely. I still have a few more things to get. That's better than us, I said, grinning. The number of shops in the Mexican jungle is terrible. And the selection was so limited, Mom said, getting in on the joke. You may not be too much happier with the selections left in the stores here. Everything's been picked over already. It has to be better than what we've had to choose from, Mom said. Oh, it's so good to be back home. Even if it is cold here. What should we do first? I asked. Let's get our tree first, before there's nothing left, if there's anything left now. Then we should do our gift buying. Lastly, we'll get the food for our Christmas dinner. You two girls can use my car and I'll use the rental since I'm the only one listed on the rental agreement. Okay, Mom. I have to take a bath and get ready. I don't dare go out without my disguise. I imagine that the release of Under the Scarlet Maple has made my features too well known. A couple of hours later, Carol and I picked out the best tree that we could find from the ones that remained. One side was full and even, while the other was sparse and ragged, but if we arranged it right and decorated it well, no one would notice. We dropped the tree off at the house before going out to do our shopping. With just a limited amount of time to get everything, we didn't waste time trying on things ourselves as we had done in years past. This year it was all business and we managed to get it done in one day thanks to the very late hours in many of the stores during the last week. The next day Carol and I went to do the grocery shopping while Mom went out gift shopping again. Despite being Sunday, the stores opened early and closed late with just one more day before Christmas. When we got back home we decorated the tree, and when Sherry and Heather dropped over, the four of us strung the outdoor lights. When the lights were all up, we came inside to get warm and we sat down in the kitchen to have some tea only to wind up making several batches of cookies. There's nothing like a nice warm chocolate chip cookie that was just baked. Mom called around 5 to say that she wouldn't be home for dinner, so Carol and I cooked the chicken that we had bought earlier at the market, along with some potatoes and vegetables. When Mom finally got home I heated up a plate of food for her as she relaxed in the kitchen. She had managed to get everything that she wanted before she headed home. Debbie called the next morning to let me know that she was home from college. I had left a message on her machine right after we had arrived home asking her to call when she got back. We talked for about an hour, until I had to give up the phone for Carol, but before I rang off, we made a date to go shopping right after Christmas. Aunt Jessica arrived around noon and the four of us had a nice reunion. This was the first year that I could remember that the four of us hadn't been together for Thanksgiving. We caught up on each other's news as we spent the afternoon preparing the foods for our Christmas meal. After dinner we did the marathon gift wrapping thing again as Mom delivered presents to each of us and we wrapped them. I don't know how she managed to do all the shopping that she did. Fortunately, Carol and I had done our own wrapping, so when Mom finally ran out of presents, we were done. We relaxed afterwards with a cup of eggnog as we watched some late-night television. Mom and Aunt Jess were already up when I came down on Christmas morning. They had filled the bird with the stuffing that we had made yesterday and were having breakfast as it cooked. I kissed them both after wishing them a Merry Christmas and got a cup of OJ before joining them at the table. I was just telling your mother how much I enjoyed your performance in Under the Scarlet Maple. I think that you were born for parts like that. You made the character of Elizabeth seem so real that it was positively spooky. Thanks, Aunt Jess. It was fun doing the picture despite the cold weather up in Maine. At least I didn't have to stand out in it like I did in New York, but I wish that I could get a nice long job in Hawaii. This last job in the Mexican jungle was the worst. Heat, insects, spiders as big as your hand, and snakes are not ideal working conditions. At least the cast and crew were great. What's your next project, sweetheart? We leave for England in 3 weeks to begin shooting a movie entitled The Moons of Cappacia. The Moons of Cappacia? What's that, a medieval fantasy? I giggled. No. It's a movie set in outer space in the future. You know, Star Trek type stuff. Oh. And it's being shot in England? Yes. Pinewood Studios. Where they made most of the James Bond movies. Oh, I'd love to visit England. Well, we'll be there for at least 3 months. Come over and visit. I'm sure that we'll have plenty of room. If I can get off from work, I'll be there. Carol came into the kitchen rubbing her eyes and wishing us all a Merry Christmas. We hugged and kissed, then I went over to the stove to make a couple of eggs while Carol got a cup of juice and tried to wake up. After the eggs were ready, I dished them up, adding a couple of the pieces of bacon that Mom had cooked to each plate and carried them to the table. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks.